All right, Year 11, here's a run through of Task 1, Toys and Games Folio. So your first page of the folio is obviously your identification of the need. Like I said in class, this is the first page of the folio that in Year 12 the markers actually read. It should set the scene. It should give some background research on like the theme of what this project's about. So this project is all about toys. So I should have a bit of research about, the benefits of toys and why playing is important for children. And then I should see you sort of allude to maybe the benefits or the themes that you're going to focus on throughout this project. So I can see in this one, Tisha's going to focus on educational games, maybe to do with physical or competitive, because she's sort of addressing that towards the end of her identification of the need. Remember, it doesn't say exactly what you're doing. It just gives background to the reason why you're going to make something, and gives us some hints on the direction you're going to go to. The design brief, a lot of these sample folios have just copied and pasted the design brief. Honestly, we're probably not going to worry too much about it. In the marking criteria, I'm pretty sure it said, in fact, if I have it somewhere, here it is. I think it said, yeah, design and construct a toy or game that could be marketed and sold. It is to be as enjoyable and beneficial as possible to play with. Now, personally, I prefer it if you added in some things there, like I will design and construct a toy or game for a child aged 4 to 6. It is to be enjoyable and also beneficial in terms of education, or promotes memory retention, or it encourages physical activity. I would like, the word beneficial to be replaced with the actual one you've chosen, so that your design brief is actually a little bit more specific. But, if you haven't done that, don't panic too much. All right. We then have our action time plan. Now, as I said, for this one, it's really just a practice. We asked you to sort of put everything that you need to do into week blocks, and then evaluate whether or not you did them then and why, and sort of a reflection on this side of the column. Obviously, most of us didn't do this plan until later on in the project, so it's not a realistic time plan, but at least you've had a go at putting together a table like this, and it will then hopefully make a bit more sense in our next project when we do it a little bit better. The other thing that is in section 1 that is not in these sample folios is the criteria to evaluate success. I need to ask you in this video here to ignore this middle column. I've got a sample of a major project up where we actually do testing. We obviously didn't do any testing in this project, so you can just ignore this middle column here. But that is where we asked you to put like 2 function, 2 aesthetics, and maybe one more like ergonomics or quality, something like that. And you need to come up with some specific criteria, some specific functional criteria that you would try to aim to meet by the end. You can see this student has said must be comfortable when put on and off, must be comfortable when put on and non-irritable. On this side of the screen where we have the standard to achieve, that is what it should be at the end, and something measurable, like a SMART goal kind of thing, something measurable that you can assess later on when you evaluate. So this student said the finished wristband must be comfortable on the child's skin, causing no irritation or allergic reaction. So that's something specific to look out for. It means the material it is made of should be something which does not contain particles, etc., which can cause an allergic reaction. So it's specific to a material there. Other things can be, it must, the finished the finished stool must be able to be sat on by a child age 6 for at least 10 minutes without breaking. So it's something that can be measured or tested. So yeah, that's the last column. So we should see some aesthetic ones as well. If we jump all the way to the evaluation section where we evaluate function and aesthetics, that's where, all the way to section 3 now, that's where we then copy and paste that functional or aesthetic criteria that we put in our table. Appeal to teen girls, overall specifically decorative techniques, important, because don't worry about it. That's a really bad one. Let's have a look at a better one. Product is visually inviting for use, appealing to my target market of children and teachers. So that was her criteria. Here's her standard to achieve. Final product must immediately catch the interest and entice primary school students and teachers to ensure that everyone will get involved. Should be achieved through good colour scheme, font choice, and overall visual theme that remains consistent in all project elements. So that's her first column in purple and her next column in black here. Criteria, standard to achieve. Then she has evaluated to what extent she believes she has achieved that. What proof does she have that this worked out? Was it something she could see visually? Did she test it? Is there something you could have done better if you had the time over? So it's a sort of a reflective evaluation based on that aesthetic criteria. And then your next aesthetic criteria, and then hopefully you have some functions. Where are we? Function. Now this is also a major project, so there's a lot written here, but just to give you an idea of section 3, when we get to, oh gosh, my laptop's going to struggle, this bit here, evaluation of functional and aesthetic aspects, evaluates the functional aesthetic aspects of the project. Okay, so yes, you can write just in general, like 2 kind of chunky paragraphs, but the correct way to evaluate function and aesthetics is to evaluate it based on the original criteria that you had set up at the beginning. Okay, let's just go back through it normally. Then we move on to section 2 of the folio. So after your criteria for success and your action time, we go to section 2. This is where we should see all of your cognitive organizers, and we've called those ideas generation because cognitive organizers help us generate ideas. Most of you have some collages, evaluation of course, mind maps. This is a mind map of the benefits of toys. This is a concept map which puts then the themed, the main benefit that this student's choosing, which is education from this previous mind map. So she's chosen education, and she's moved it down here, education, and now she's got themes of different educations, language, maths, geography, and then within those subcategories, what else could we divide that up into? And all of these categories and subcategories could actually be the entire theme of the project. I could see an entire project about learning Italian, or I could see an entire project just about countries, but it still links to education and it's education of culture. So anyway, of course, evaluated. Now, can we please remember there are 4 sort of steps when we evaluate. The first step is always what's on the page. The second step is what do we like? What are we vibing with and why? What do we not like so much and why? Maybe it's not the direction you want to go, but why? Always why. It's not an evaluation unless you're saying why, because you have to show judgment for it to be an evaluation. And then we move on to what you're going to do next. So what's the next stage? What have you learnt from doing this, and what's the next stage? Often the next step is just saying what you're going to do next. You might be saying, I'm going to move on to doing some PMIs. So that's fine. So in saying that, then we move on to exploring existing ideas, which are still cognitive organizers. These are our PMIs, or I like to call them PMEs, positive, negative, and evaluation. And these should be for products that are already on the market that you are going to analyze through a PME analysis to identify those positives, negatives, and whether or not you think this is the sort of direction you might want to go with, or would you like to do something similar? If I look at another student's section of that, let's go back to her section 2, we can see again, nice collage there, some benefits. Again, another concept map, another collage, and then the PMEs, okay? Lovely. Now, something that we want to make sure we have because it's in the criteria, cognitive organizers, PMEs, including overall conclusion. Okay, so because, I cannot move that. What's going on there? Zoom out. Because it says overall conclusion here and here, we don't want to make our mark go all the way down to a 15 to 21 for existing ideas because we left out something in the marking criteria. So most of these students, yep, they all should have an overall conclusion. Now, can I please ask that we don't use jumbo font to try to make it look like we took up the page. It's just embarrassing because we're not stupid. I mean, I've done HSC marking and font is 12 point pretty much always, unless it's a heading or something that wants to be emphasized. So, if I've gone all around the state marking HSC projects and I've read 12-point font all day, and then I go and look at size, 26 font, it's pretty obvious. We would rather that you actually break up these big paragraphs into like more sections, maybe bold bits that are showing real nice reflective points that you're putting forward. And really, just if you need to make it big to make it look like you've written more, just write more. That's pretty much what I would say. All right, moving on. We then move on to our survey, our target market research, where we've analyzed each graph. Remember saying, what's in the graph, but also what does that mean? What does it tell us? Were we surprised by that? And what decisions we're going to make? The best ones also include an overall conclusion of the main points that we got from doing that. After our survey, we have our it would depend. Some of you might have done your drawings next. Others of you may have put the table next. Either I'll just do the table now because this student's put the table. So this is where we put all of our materials, tools, and techniques. You can see this student, she's got her materials first. Materials. Then she's got some tools. Oh no, these are still materials. Still materials. Oh, goodness me. Tools. And then hopefully techniques, soldering, overlocking, embroidery, fabrication, etc., etc. The middle column is where on the product these things will be used or what they're going to be used for. And the most important one, which should be the widest column, is the justification. And this is where we want to see more than just saying, I use scissors because it was the obvious choice to cut my material. We want to see why, what is the benefit of scissors? Why didn't you use a laser cutter to cut through your fabric? Or, why did you choose to laminate your cards instead of using cardboard? And saying, well, I thought about it's for kids. They could spill something on it. They're likely to break easily. If I laminate them, they're waterproof. So just try to compare with another option so that your justification sounds thought through, like you did consider other options, but this was the best material, or you did consider other options, but this was the best tool. After that, you go onto your drawings, but I think most of you, I think most of us would probably have our drawings first. So our drawings should have our concept sketches, which is usually about 4 pictures on a page that maybe are labeled, with what they are. So you can see this student said an interactive dog, a stuffed cube, etc. Whoopsies. And then at the bottom, an evaluation which says, okay, out of these 4 things, I think I'm going to go with this. This is why. This is the gist I'm going with. And then our development drawing should be different variations of the thing that we've chosen up here. So if we've chosen this bear, hopefully our development drawings, which don't have to be in color, this student did do hers in color. She was working mostly on an iPad at the time because she was in hospital. So yeah, these are in color, but it doesn't matter if they're not in color. So we should have 3 variations here. Some people did 4 variations. You can see she's done 4 variations. And then the final drawing, which should be quite detailed, thoroughly annotated, dimensions on there. I should know all the different materials that are being used here, and an evaluation which justifies why this is definitely the best choice. But all these other ones need an evaluation too. So what I like, don't like, what I might change, etc., etc. Now, with the documentation of production or our evidence of practical skills, some students may have done it this way with step-by-step construction. Others of you may have done more of a photo step-by-step with, photos or screenshots of the process which are labeled on the photo, like on Snapchat, how you can label the photo. Either or is fine for this project. We're not going to worry too much about which way you've chosen to do it. The next project is where we will grow this section a little bit more. This then leads us on to our production plans or packaging. This student did do packaging, but most students don't. Most students do a logo page. So if I have a look here, you can see, oh, I'm going to run out of time. Okay, I'm going to start speaking really fast. Where is it? Logo. logo page with an evaluation of why that's the best chosen logo. Oh, then we have point of difference, all the reasons why your project is amazing and all the features and why it's so awesome, how to play, what you're meant to do with the project, etc., etc. And then obviously function aesthetic evaluation and 2 evaluations by other